Yari! Victory and praises, everyone. I'm Casey the Space Shaman, and today I'm joined by my friend Pat Simmons. Pat, welcome.
Hello.
How you
Yes, thank
doing?
you. I'm doing really good today, man. I've definitely had some hiccups in the road these past maybe the past week since I just recently had you on my show and yeah, life throws curveballs, but I'm able to manage and redirect way better than I ever have. So I just always give myself kudos for when I'm doing better than I was, even though I'm not where I want to be. I can see the progression of healing, and it's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and Eris is here. So say beautiful soul, say Eris.
Hey,
Yeah,
Eris.
I totally agree. Same thing with me. Sometimes we can almost forget like how much progress we've made. And when we see, maybe we'll react a little bit to something, and then we look back and on how we used to react and the way we used to interact with things like that, and we're like, wow, I really have come a long way. So it's beautiful to see those reminders, because in the moment it's sometimes easy to forget.
Yeah.
Easy to forget how far we've come. So yeah, what have you been up to lately? What kind of projects are you getting up to? What are you doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've definitely been wanting to more focus on like the homeopathic remedies of what nature provides us, and it's a beautiful time for that springtime. Actually, after I hop off here, I'm gonna go check my morel spot and go hunting for some mushrooms. But I've
Oh man,
definitely, yeah, it's super. I love my fungi.
have you ever actually found morels?
I have.
I have been looking for them for years, and I have not found a single one.
Yeah, there's like a 2 week period, and I'm learning more about like it's when the ground just starts to warm up a little bit, as when they start fruiting. So I have
Yeah,
a buddy who's real into it, and he's taken me 2 years in a row now. The first year I was like, oh man, dude, they're finding them left and right, and it's you got to get an eye for it because I didn't have the eye yet. I found like two. They had like 30 or 40, and so.
that's
It
so
can be
wild.
it can be frustrating, but it's very healing in the way that it helps me slow down and pay attention to my surroundings, and you can almost, I mean, we are nature itself, but it's like the more you tune in, the more aware you become. I think everything's communicating with me all the time, and it's that it, it just, yeah, it's a really healing thing for me. I mean, going out in the woods in general, it's a good reset, with grounding and the science behind grounding and all that. It's just much needed for me. I
Yeah,
got that going on. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I've been growing some lion's mane mushrooms, and I want to kind of get a more production in that, just so I can make some side money and bring what I believe is the medicine to the people. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. My cousin was growing lion's mane at one point, and I know it's like there's a lot more that goes into it than you think. It's not just like inoculate a bag and then you have mushrooms. You have to be really careful about like contaminants and all kinds of other things, get the conditions, the moisture just right, and all that stuff. So that's really cool, though. But speaking of morels, like I said, it's wild because I will see these posts online where people have their entire living room floor just filled, like set out with morels that they forage. And I go out every year and I've got to find one, and these people are finding like pounds upon pounds of them. And but the thing is, I've heard is that when people find a spot, at least in my experience, when people find a spot, they will not share it with anyone. They will not tell you where that spot is. It's like a treasure to them, and they do not spread that information easily. So, but yeah, it's really wild. I agree with you too. Foraging, I have found mushrooms. I haven't found morels, but I found oysters and chicken of the woods and chanterelles a few times, and yeah, it just puts you into a very different frame of mind. It's almost like entering into a very interesting altered state of consciousness, that kind of gatherer altered state, or you're really tuned in to your, like you said, you're really tuned into your surroundings. They're communicating to you. And I really do think that for example, like if I find my first morel, I know it'll be easier to find more. And a lot of people would just attribute that to like, okay, now I recognize the pattern in my brain. My brain's wired itself to be able to find that because I've seen one in the wild, and that is true. But you're also learning its frequency. You've come into contact with its frequency in the wild, and your pokpo, your energy field, can go out and then kind of draw you to those locations because you can energetically sense them more. Because like you said, we are always sensing our environment. The environment is always communicating to us. And that is one of the things that is holds true across almost all of the ancient shamanic cultures of the world, is this knowing that everything is alive and conscious and can be communicated with.
Absolutely. Yeah, and developing that is, yeah, it's like it's a muscle. I view everything as a muscle, kind of like, yeah, you have to work it out. You have to put in the time, the seat time, I call it. You know, you have to do the practices and honing that in. And this is like the first. I went foraging last year as well, but it's something that I really feel called to, and I want to dive deeper in. Like ramps are gonna start popping up. You know,
Yeah.
I found some. Yeah, I found some oysters before and some hen of the woods. Oh, no, that's wrong. I forget what the hell they're called.
Turkey tail?
No, turkey tail is amazing. I want to find some today because that immunity support with turkey tail is just, they say, out of this world. And you asked me also what I've been working on. I have some extraction devices that I would like. Once I gather certain things, I am able to extract the good medicinal components out and make tinctures and stuff. And that's something I really, moving forward in the future, I want to, build my own product line and do that, because I just think
That's amazing.
Love it. It's amazing. Yeah.
That's so cool. Real quick, I had to pull this one up because there says ramps. I love ramps. She's saying, let's go foraging. It was funny when I first met Eris. It was one of the first times I ever hung out with Eris after we started dating, and I took her foraging for ramps, and she was just obsessed with it. She wanted every single time we got together, can we go out and get more ramps? Can we go out and get more ramps? And it was just ramps are delicious. I like to just saute them up on their own, maybe like a little bit of butter, a little bit of salt and pepper. And I'll just eat them straight on their own. And I just think they're so delicious. It's one of the, that to me is like a prime wild foraged edible. I think they're just so tasty.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I agree. Last year we came into a huge patch and I was, learned how to pickle them. So I've been munching on pickled ramps throughout the whole year. Yeah.
How do you like lacto ferment them, or do you just brine them in like vinegar and salt?
Yeah, I put a little bit of like just pickling seasoning with the vinegar and just water bath sealed the jars.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. So I've seen your setup, your extraction setup. I think I saw a post about that. I don't know. It was months ago, but I saw a post. You had some kind of still running or something like that. And so what is that all about? How does that work exactly? What do you do with that?
That's called a sock slit extractor. And I think the video I posted, I was doing a turmeric. I had some frozen turmeric that was just sitting in the freezer forever that I was never going to use. So I was just actually had the kids, and I like to get them involved in learning about whatever I'm doing. So what that is you can use whatever solvent you want. Ethanol seems to be a pretty efficient one, but a lot of medicinal mushrooms also have compounds that are water soluble, so you can use water as well. But it has a base that's heated, and you put whatever solvent in there, and then you put whatever organic material you want in the main sock slit chamber. And then on top, it has a condenser, which has coils in it that you run cool water through. So basically, your heating thing evaporates whatever solvent. It goes up, hits the condenser, cools down, and then drips your solvent over your organic material. And then that washes all the compounds back into the bottom beaker. And it just cycles out. And the cool thing, like, honestly, you could do that with a mason jar and just put whatever in there and put your alcohol in there. But that process, if you do it the old fashioned way, takes months, right? So you're getting the heated element that adds makes the extraction process quicker. And then basically, from my understanding, once you see all the color wash out of whatever organic material, you got the compounds you need. So it's just like a kind of a nifty little setup, and I bought that on Amazon. Yeah, and then I have this thing. It's called a Source Turbo. A lot of people use it for cannabis extraction, which I never have, but it's an alcohol recovery system. So it has a chamber and like this outer casing that is like a tray, and you pull a vacuum on it. Now, if you pull a vacuum, things boil at lower temperatures.
Right.
Which is actually way better, because the higher temperatures you go, the more compounds can degrade with temperature. And I just recently talked to this person who had a really great idea about the Soxhlet in general, because there is a vapor hole at the top, and he told me to buy like a pump brake line thing, so I can actually create a vacuum on my Soxhlet, because like I said, the lower temperature, the better, so you don't degrade the compounds. But with the Source Turbo, it actually evaporates the alcohol out, and it raises the top and drips it in a separate chamber. So you're left with, like, it depends on what you're using. I've done a lot of lion's mane extractions, mainly some blue oysters just to play around. I did do a ramps extraction as well. And that, it's almost like a goop. Like if you're familiar with concentrate cannabis, it almost is very similar. And but that evaporates your alcohol, so you can reclaim it. You can use the same. That way, I'm not wasting alcohol. The old-fashioned way would be boil it off on the stove.
Yeah, distill it.
Yeah, you're losing all that vapor, which is valuable because you can re-extract whatever. But the ramps is super interesting too, because it takes about 7 to 8 years for once it forms to actually pop out of the ground and produce.
Yeah.
And what I learned is that if there's compounds in the ground that take the longevity, like you grow maybe a pea plant, takes like 90 days, right? But like 8 years, that compound is now building a bunch of antibacterial, antifungal, so many different things to keep its immune system from surviving, that once we consume those things, they're like powerhouse of resources for our bodies.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. And one of the things I find really fascinating about plant medicines, whether it's, just something to help with the immune system, like these mushrooms or ramps or whatever else, or whether it's a psychedelic plant teacher, is in my experience that, there is a lot of power in the physical component of the plant, but it's the energetic component, the spiritual component of the plant that has almost just as much power as the physical, if not more. Case in point, like with cacao, ceremonial grade cacao, there's some people that can drink that and, they can go about their day, and it's just kind of a little bit uplifting and, maybe makes them feel a little more energized. And then you can instead of doing that, if you sit down, you make a ceremony and a ritual around it, and you really call on the spirit of the plant, communicate with the spirit of Mother Cacao, and then work with her spirit consciously and intentionally inside of your body and inside of your energy field, it can become like a psychedelic experience. There's the same plant can either be just mildly stimulant and mildly uplifting to like almost a full-blown psychedelic experience. And Eris can attest to this. She had drank ceremonial grade cacao, a whole bunch of times. She would drink it regularly. She'd have it in the morning, kind of go about her day. And then she was like, hey, we should drink cacao together sometime. And I'm like, yeah, like it'd have to be a special occasion for me because it's a really intense experience. And I don't think she fully understood just how powerful it could be. So she, again, same physiology, all this stuff, same person, would drink it all the time, kind of have very mild effects. And then she came over one time right before we were about to go on a hike, and I really, worked the mesa and called in the power of Mother Cacao and drew her spirit in. And both of us were having like one of the most intense plant medicine experiences we've had. The way we described it is it was almost like a mushroom experience, but in a somatic way, not so much mental. It was just the sensations in the body and the energy in the body felt very psychedelic. And so, yeah, it's beautiful. So I always, that's a big missing component, I think, for a lot of people, is when they work with herbal medicine, they're taking it like people take pharmaceuticals, just pop it in your mouth and run out the door. whatever, whether they're working with something to help their immune system or help with inflammation or help their anxiety or depression. They're missing out on the component that used to be always honored, and that is really connecting with the conscious spirit of the medicine and working with that. Because there's so much power in that. And like I said, it completely transforms the way that medicine works inside of you.
I can contest to that also, because I think the only time I actually had ceremonial great cacao was with you and Eris at the event that I attended. And, my practice of like shamanic journeying and creative visualization and things of that nature is it's not consistent. It seems to be only when I go out to set that up. I haven't created a ritual for myself in that aspect, but I was able, my visuals through your meditation were so vivid and intense in comparison to just like not entering a substance in my body and doing that, which I also can get there with that, but it was just so vivid. And yeah, I can test a lot of it, just to that intention setting, being in that, creating the space to do that, but also, yeah, the cacao, I'm sure, like you said, has heart opener effects, and it just let me feel, it let me be present with my inner child and really communicate on a way that I've never experienced prior to that.
Yeah, that was so much fun. So I want to talk a little bit about that experience. So as Eris and I had held an event, I think we called it the Child Heart Bliss Cacao Ceremony, I believe was the name of it. And so we served cacao to everyone, and then I guided us all through an experience to connect with our inner child. And at one point during this experience, I had everyone ask their inner child what they would like to do to play, like how their inner child wants to play, like now. And so after that was all over, after we guided everyone through the experience, I had everyone open their eyes. And then I asked, I was like, hey, does anyone want to share what their inner child wanted to do to play? And Pat was like, yeah, my inner child wanted to have a lightsaber battle. And so I was like, all right, everybody, so we're all going to have a lightsaber battle right now. So it was a room full of adults, and we were all with invisible pretend lightsabers in our hands, swacking each other and using the force and fighting each other. It was just so beautiful and playful, and it was so much fun. Everybody had a huge smile on their face. Everybody was really experiencing so much joy and really connecting with and healing their inner child. And it's just, most people would never allow themselves the space to really allow their inner child to play like that as an adult, because we're taught at a certain point. We're taught like, hey, that's for kids. You need to be serious. You're an adult now. It's time to stop playing pretend and do adult things. Focus on your job. Focus on school and all of that. And we're trained out of our imagination and our creativity and our natural bliss and joy and our ability to experience that bliss and joy. And, people become so addicted to certain things like their phones and their jobs and all of this, that in order to receive any kind of satisfaction, it's like they have to drink alcohol or they have to scroll on their phone for hours. But that whole room of people, guided in the right way and held space for in the right way, we were having the time of our lives and all we were doing was playing pretend and having a lightsaber battle. And I just think that's so freeing. It was amazing. But I'd love to hear your experience of what that was like for you.
Yeah, I agree with 100% with everything you said too. Like, yeah, it was such a beautiful, the way you and Eris had set it up, like throughout the meditation, playing the sound bowls. It really sets you in that beautiful, relaxing state to kind of let go. And yeah, it was almost like I was traveling through this cave, and I came to this. It was a beautiful scene of like a beach washing up kind of on a cave, and me and my inner child were sitting there. When you asked that, like, yeah, like, well, what, like, talk to your inner child, like, what do you want to do? And I've always been a Star Wars fan, of course, and yeah, it was just so freeing. And then actually getting up and interacting. My girlfriend was there, playing around with that. We hopped around with people, battling different stuff. It was for me. I have two children, ages 5 and 7. And we play like that a lot, like just play around, throwing stuff, playing Nerf guns, wrestling, whatever, run around the yard. But I never do that without them. So it's like a huge realization, kind of like what you said, like we've been programmed. Like I give I give myself permission to do that with my children, but like just in the day to day, like hanging out with a couple adults, it's more serious, sitting at the table, maybe playing a board game or something, you know, or maybe
Yeah.
even like going outside and throwing the ball around, but just to use that imagination, you know, no structure. I mean, there was structure, but no, like, this is the rule book, you know, and just being able to let go and run around. It's such a freeing experience. And that's what I think I got most out of it, was like that. I can play anytime with anyone, and people
Yeah.
love it. And I was just laughing, and, you know, and it's been the journey for me to like not be so serious in life. Because sometimes like I had to grow up quick in ways, you know, and that did definitely turn off a lot of like, we have free time to just play. Let's play. You know, it was more like, I got to focus on what's next. I got to make sure I'm safe. Those types of things that kept me safe started implementing my predominant thought patterns rather than just a joyous, free flowing type of attitude. So, yeah, it's just these little keys, I call them, or, you know, guideposts throughout the way. Like, oh, cool. Like, this is what worked for me prior, and I honor it, but now I can do this, and it works just as good, and it's more fun. And that's what life's about. You know, like a happy life is a happy string of moments, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Eris popped in and said that was my favorite event ever. That was my favorite one too.
For sure.
Mike's here, says hi. David said, "What's up?" Yeah, I totally, the imagination too. This is really important. Like you said, you know, we're taught, some of us from a very young age, to prioritize, you know, survival, and prioritize. Not that survival isn't important. Survival is very important, of course, but we're taught that the imagination is not only unimportant and not useful, but it's not even real. It doesn't even really exist, you know. And the imagination, when you start to get into journeying and interacting with spirit, playing with energy, doing healing work, shamanic journeying, all this stuff, you realize very quickly the imagination is our tool for perceiving reality. And there is no such thing as an unreal reality. You know, if you experience, for example, I guide people through their first shamanic journey. They're telling me, okay, I'm inside this cave, and there's all these glowworms hanging from the ceiling, and now I'm following this river, and I come up, and there's a beautiful tree, and there's this buck walking by, and they're describing this very detailed, beautiful environment. And then some people come out of that, and they're like, yeah, I think I was just making that all up. Like, I don't think that was real. Well, you experienced it. It was reality. How could there be an unreal reality? That sounds silly when you put it that way. Everything we experience is real. It just may not be on the same physical vibrational plane of reality, but they're all reality, and no one is more or less real than another. But the imagination is the tool that we use to perceive all the realities outside of the physical one. And there's so much power in that. Like, I guide people through these experiences all the time when they're having deep depression or severe anxiety, or whether they're having intense physical pain or illness or whatever it is. And I use my imagination to interact with their spiritual body, with their energy field. And some people will go from 10 out of 10 pain to level 0 pain completely free, or like 10 out of 10 panic attack anxiety down to no anxiety whatsoever. And I'm just playing with my imagination, which is, you know, interacting with the realms of spirit through my spiritual senses. But that's the greatest control mechanism that's been placed on mankind, I think, is one of the greatest control mechanisms, is this idea that the imagination is not real. That is one of the greatest control mechanisms. Because if you can get an entire world of people, essentially, almost an entire world of people, to believe that their very perception of reality is false, is not real, and not worth exploring, like, what a genius control mechanism that is. You know?
I concur. Yeah, it's been a journey for me for sure, because it's like, yes, like I read this book a long time ago called Hardwiring Happiness, and that was super good for me. It was like an awakening, because I learned that, like, they say even if you imagine exercising, your actual muscles become stronger. Like, the brain does not know the difference, right, from physical reality, what we perceive, or what we perceive in our mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still am not full bore, like, I can still trick myself out of believing if I experience something in my mind, is it real? Like, is that real? But like, I do understand there's different. I'm just running on a different wavelength. I've come to the realization that our imagination is what I believe creates reality. I go back and forth because sometimes I wonder if these entities or beings that people focus on were there before, or if I created a new being in my mind and got a mass population to hold that, is that what actually creates that being? Or was that there before and imprinted something in me, and we give it momentum to. I do think of thoughts as electromagnetic frequencies that build momentum. Like our thoughts are so precious. Everything we think about gives something momentum. That's why thinking in lack or worrying about things, it is not beneficial whatsoever. It actually gives momentum to the things that we don't want. But likewise with the beautiful things that we can imagine and love and give our loving thoughts to, it builds momentum.
Eris commented and said both, and I agree. So on one hand, if you look at the onality of things, right, the oneness, we are all consciousness. At our essence, we are awareness. We're pure, empty, spacious, conscious awareness, and from that, everything is created. So really, from what we are at our deepest essence, the consciousness that everything is, yes, we are birthing everything, the whole multiverse into existence. But this has actually been studied a lot by especially Dr. Joe Dispenza. Our brains are actually a lot more like radio receivers than they are like broadcasters. So when we are imagining, let's say like a being, an entity that you're interacting with, that being exists for real and has its own very real consciousness, its awareness, its own life outside of when you're interacting with it. It's just as real as you or me. It's just not on the physical plane. When whatever we imagine, whether it's like you're communicating with a goddess or whether it's you thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow for lunch, we're actually picking up on information from the multiverse, or you can call it the quantum fields, right? We're picking that up, and there's actually these rhombohedron crystals in our pineal gland that act as like radio receivers, and they take electromagnetic information from the multiverse, from the quantum field, and they translate it into audio, visuals, etc., sensory information in our imagination. So like on one instance, we are the consciousness that creates everything. So yes, we're creating it, but is my brain projecting and creating these entities and these other aspects of reality? No. They're already there. We're just receiving it. And in fact, even our minds aren't inside of our brain. That's a very common misconception. Our minds aren't inside of our brain. Our minds are in our energy field around us. That's why it happens all the time, like with people like me and probably you and especially me and Eris. It happens all the time where we're able to read the exact same thought at the same time, even completely random, off the wall, random things. If we haven't been talking for about anything along those lines, and we have the same weird random thought at the same time. That's because our thoughts aren't inside of our brain, they're inside of the energy field, and then our brains pick up on that information. We pick up on the same bit of information, and it comes through at the same time. And Eric says we tune into that radio station. Yeah. So yeah, it's it's always kind of paradoxical because the onality and the duality and the reality, they are kind of like opposites of each other, but they're both true at the same time. So.
Yeah, I agree. I had an experience at a festival one time, my first ketamine experience, and I was walking with a friend, and I was observing myself from the third person. Like I was watching the back of my head as we walked down this trail. And I have heard the theory that we are just receivers and consciousness exists outside the body, but I'm such a skeptical person. I need that anecdotal evidence. And that was it for me. I'm like, wow, I'm really able to view the back of my head and see this. Like I don't exist in my body. This is just an avatar. So that was a super awakening experience for me.
That's beautiful. And that's the thing. I love that you brought that up, because spirit, if it's religion, if we're talking about like Christianity or like any of some of the big world religions, they ask for your blind faith on this stuff. It's like, if you don't have this blind faith and just believe what we tell you, then you're going to go to hell and it's going to be bad for you and all of that. But real spirituality, and especially shamanism, doesn't ask for that. So if you ask for the proof, it will give it to you, and it will give it to you over and over and over and over again. And same thing with me. I was an atheist before my spiritual awakening, and I had so much. I would even have experiences where I'm like, how could I doubt that? How could I possibly doubt that? That's proof beyond proof right there that all of this is real. And then my mind would still come in and still have doubts around things. So spirit would go, here's more proof. And I go, okay, now I definitely can't doubt it. And then because I've been programmed and conditioned from birth about all this stuff, my mind would come in again and be like, how do I know that? And then again, proof after proof after proof, to this point where I've had so many undeniable experiences like this. And I have them every day still. Every day spirit reminds me. And I'd have to be pretty dense and stubborn to have doubts around any of this anymore. But still, it comes up every once in a while. Just it's a very tiny little sensation compared to what it used to be. And if you're open to that, if you say like, spirit, like, show cause in my life. Show me proof that you're here, that you're real, like it. But the key is you have to be really open to receive that. You have to have the desire and be open to receive that. And then it will give it to you, in abundance, and will give you that proof. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I want to touch on that too, because my experiences with like asking my higher power to show me stuff has been very like, I'm at my rock bottom and I'm almost cursing God, I'm like, F you, like, if you're so real, like, show yourself. This is bullshit. His life cannot be this hard. And, and my higher power has that cosmic comedy, I call it, and that so loving. Like, those are the points where I've been so open. Like, and it's like, oh, yeah, sorry I called you an asshole, but, you're showing me what I asked for. Like, next time I'll ask a little nicer,
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people all the time. Just ask and ye shall receive, and it's like, but like you said, you have to be open. I've like, like driving, like someone asked me a question and we're like driving down, there's a literal sign that answers that question. And I'm like, see, we just look at that. But some people are so cut off. What the fuck are you talking about? It's just a sign, it's like, no, the universe it has all the answers right in front of us all the time. Like, you just got to fine tune your radio receiver to jump on that channel and see it, but it's always right there.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And sometimes so for example, when a spirit, just to give one kind of example of this, when a spirit shows up to the point where it's like physical, where you can physically see it with your eyes, not just through the imagined sense, but you can physically see it and you can physically hear it and touch it and experience it. Those experiences are often born out of places of real despair and doubt and fear, because it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy for spirit to show up in this world in that way. And so they don't just willy-nilly go and do it all the time. And we don't need when we're vibing high and we feel connected and we don't need them to show up like that. It's when we're at our lows. It's when we're really low and where we have a lot of fear and doubt, but we want to do something about it. We're begging for something to help to pull us out of that place of fear and doubt. Then spirit will manifest in those incredible ways like that. And then once you've had that experience and it sinks into your subconscious and you trust and and you're like, okay, yes, I've been programmed my whole life to believe this way, but I've been given the proof over and over again. Just had that wild experience. Okay, I can calm down. I trust now. And then you can slowly kind of bring yourself out of that place. And then you don't need those anymore. Then that's when spirit comes through a path of much less resistance, and that is through our imagined senses, because those are open all the time. Those we can use that. I can use that to sense things about you or anyone, or get answers about questions, communicate to spirits, travel the multiverse. I can do all that very easily through my imagined senses, which are, and I really want to come up with like a new word that I use for it. And, there's words like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. I want a word to kind of encapsulate all of that. But at the same time, like, for example, if I tell people and I'm guiding them through their first journey, if I'm telling them like, okay, see a staircase and walk down that staircase. If I say that, I can't see that. I can't see energy. I can't see spirit. They get all this, they think it's this big deal where they have to crack open their pineal gland and like have this immense spiritual experience in order to be able to see or perceive anything in spirit. So sometimes I use the language of imagination to my advantage. Because if I'm telling someone like, okay, see your spirit guide in front of you and interact with them, I can't do that. I can't see spirit guides. I'm not that powerful. But if I tell them, hey, if you could just imagine, what would you imagine your spirit guide would look like? Just play pretend. Imagine what your spirit guide would look like if you can imagine them. And then next thing you know, they're describing it in like great detail. And they're having a full-on conversation because I told them just imagine it. And so sometimes we can use that to people's advantage and allow them to open up. And then afterwards, you can describe to them like, yes, hey, the imagination is your tool for perceiving reality. Just because I was using that language, I was trying to get you around your own mental blocks and barriers to make you realize that you could always see and perceive this stuff. And that's something that I really love to do, because there's so many people that come to me and they're like, man, I wish I could see energy like you. I wish I could feel energy like you. I wish I had psychic abilities like you. And I'm like, you already do. And so if someone comes to me and says, oh, I wish I could shamanic journey or see spirits or see energy, I always do the same 2-second little exercise with them. So let's try it, everyone on the stream right now. So if you're wondering whether or not you can see energy, journey, have psychic abilities, let's try this practice together. So everyone close your eyes for a moment. And just imagine that you're going to eat your next meal, like whatever you're going to do. If you're having breakfast next or lunch next or dinner next, just imagine yourself sitting down or whatever you're doing. Imagine yourself eating your next meal. Just go forward to what's going to happen. You probably already thought about it at some point today. Maybe you've already planned what you're going to have for dinner. So just think about that again. Think about yourself eating your next meal. And were you able to do that, Pat?
Yeah.
Then you have psychic abilities. You can see spirit, you can see energy, you can journey, you're a psychic. Because that's the tool. It's the same tool we use for that as the tool we use to talk to spiritual beings, to see the flows of living energy through things, to receive psychic information. It's the same exact tool, the same exact channel that it comes in. And in fact, with that, I perceive it as right then when we went and you imagine what you were going to eat for dinner, you were actually tuning in to reality at the point where that was happening, or an alternate reality where that's happening right now, a piece of information from the quantum field. And same thing when I'm laying down and listening to my audiobooks. I love fantasy audiobooks. I don't perceive myself as just visualizing or just imagining myself seeing that world and feeling the emotions of the characters. My experience is that, again, because reality is infinite, because it is infinite, and we can sense that when we meditate, when we reach that place of consciousness where we can feel the spaciousness of consciousness that we are, you can feel that there's no end to it. There's no beginning, there's no end. It's completely infinite. You can experience that for yourself very directly. And reality is inseparable from that. It's inseparable. They're one and the same. So reality is also infinite. Experience is infinite. And if it's infinite, truly infinite, that means that every single thing that could possibly happen exists for real somewhere already right now, somewhere in the multiverse. And so when I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm perceiving a part of reality where those things are actually happening somewhere in a very different way and on a very different frequency than they're happening here physically, but just as real.
Yeah. It's such an empowering way to think about things, because yes, we are multidimensional creatures. We can perceive different dimensions of reality. We can, like, because I've listened to a lot of books as well, and I love how you said that, because it's like you're there, you're doing it, you're enjoying the scenery, you're moving throughout the storyline with it. And yeah, like I said, it's just a muscle that you need to practice, because a lot of times it's like I read a lot of kids' books to my kids, and yeah, it's like the more I've been doing, like when they were little, I'm like just reading words, and the more I do it, it's like yeah, the mental images just it's just a movie playing in my head, you know, and it's just, I can feel the emotions, and it's just such a more fulfilling way to navigate reality for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these things, they'll give you proof of how relevant it is to the physical too. I remember there was this one time I was talking to a buddy, and he was with his kids having a bonfire, and I was at home and I was messaging him, and we were just playing with communicating with our guides. Like I would talk to my guides, tell them to go like play a joke on him somehow, and then he would do the same thing to me. And so I told one of my guides, Graham the angel, I'm like, hey, go do something to mess with Hank. And so I messaged Hank, and I was like, hey, like, let me know if you find anything like amiss or strange happening. And so he's like, dude, there was this, and he was vegan. I don't know if he still is, but, and he's like, dude, I went and I had to go and find these vegan marshmallows so I can make these s'mores. They were right there on the table. I turned around, turned back, and they were gone. My kids aren't in the house. They're all out at the bonfire. So it wasn't one of my kids. I literally turned around and now they're gone. And and he's like, as I told him what happened, and I told Graham to mess with them, and so then he went around, he was looking for him, he went back outside, came back in, and then they were there again, exactly where they were before, and they were back, and he took them out, and then he sat down, and he's like, well, if his name's Graham, tell him he should have messed with the graham crackers. And then Graham just looks at me and he goes, tell him to look at the last graham cracker in the box. And so he does, and he pulls it out, and there's a bite missing out of it. Like this is a freshly like opened pack. It wasn't like a piece broke off and was missing in the bottom. There was just a straight up bite missing out of it. And I looked at Graham and he's just like, yeah, it was delicious. And so like spirit it can have very real effects on physical reality. And when you're really, and the thing is being playful, right? If we were being serious about this, like, okay, let's test to see if we can create real effects on reality and experiment with this and see if we can get it to really affect things. That energy is so serious, it's so contracted and so dense and so tight, it makes it very hard for these living energies to flow. That's very much not least path of least resistance. There's a lot of resistance when you have that kind of mindset. But if you're open and playful and just like, hey, go play a prank on my buddy, fun spirit guy, like, go just mess with them somehow. Like that makes things so much more playful and light. And these energies, they love it. Playfulness, light energy that allows the living energies of the universe to flow so much more freely, And I like what you were saying before about like, like, hey, you don't need to take things so seriously. That's so important. Puklei is the word for play in the Pakokuna tradition. And play is necessary. Play is what allows us to do sacred, powerful healing work, sacred ceremony, manifestation work. Play is what allows us to birth new life into existence. When we have intercourse, that's play. And the play that children play when they're playing with their imagination. It's all this. It's all play. All that play. Play is one of the most powerful frequencies. One of the most powerful things we can engage in as human and spiritual beings.
I agree 100%. Yeah, it's a big playground. We're here to learn and have fun for sure.
Yeah. And also that, you were saying a little bit before about how, you kind of be like, oh, like why, like creator, why are you putting all this shit on me and creating all these heavy, crazy circumstances? And a lot of times we sign up for that, in a way of, we're some of us have been around, and we're all different ages spiritually, because we're all infinite. We're all the one consciousness. So in that respect, we're infinite, and we've always existed. But in terms of when our individual spirit with our own consciousness, thoughts, and emotions, and all of that, when our spirit was born, some of us only go back maybe 100 years. Some of us might go back 10 billion trillion years. And we've all been around, but some of us have been around for billions or trillions of years. And if you've been around that long, you've experienced the highest highs and the lowest lows and everything in between so many times over. And there's an infinite amount of things to experience, so you're never going to run out of things to experience. But if you've experienced that much, and then someone goes, hey, there's this amnesiac planet called Earth, where when you incarnate there, it's as if you're experiencing reality for the first time again. You won't remember anything else. It'll be like everything's new. You'll be like, oh, sign me up for that. I want to try that out. I haven't experienced something like that in so long. And then you might say, okay, I want to experience a life where everything's beautiful and joyful and blissful and everything's just perfect. I want to experience another one where things are horrible. I want to experience the greatest heartbreak, the deepest suffering, like the most pain. I want to experience all of it. I want the full range of all of it in its newness again while I'm here on Earth. And so to our logical, why would I want this? Why would I choose this? Why would I choose to have my son die, or why would I choose to be raped and all of this? And it sounds really disturbing to our egos, to our human minds, but our spirits are infinite. And our spirits also know that no matter what happens to us in these bodies, it doesn't actually harm who we are. No matter how intense the suffering is, it can only become fuel for our growth. Yeah. Even if it's really fucked up and our minds hate it and it sounds terrible, and there are things that are terrible and they're absolutely, horrible things that happen in the world. There's so many horrible things that happen. And I'm not saying those things are right. I'm just saying that in spirit, we have a much different way of perceiving that stuff because we are immortal beings.
Yeah, I concur 100%. And I've come into teachings early on in my journey that said the same thing. And it's been, I 100% believe, it's almost like, we sign up for it. It's the lessons to be learned. And so I have I'm just curious about I recently met someone who I know I'm connected to. I know they're soul family. But it's I've never really looked into what a twin flame is, or how many, the way I've heard it perceived is an oversoul. Or that's being that who we are at the innermost, and splits itself up into multiple incarnations here, maybe somewhere else as well. But yeah, I feel like I've met someone who I'm definitely we have the same soul, so to speak, and I just have no idea what the hell any of that means really, or what it, how to navigate that, because currently actually we're not communicating. Because it's such a strong connection, and it's opposite sex. We're opposite sex, and we're both in a relationship, and we just found it best that we don't move into that further because the bond is such a strong thing. But I don't know how to navigate it really, because it's
So there's different. So what you were talking about, you touched on, and I really haven't studied much about what exactly twin flame means, but in terms of splitting your being up into several pieces and incarnating several bodies at a time, that's how I came here. So I won't get into the whole story because that's a really long story, but basically there are some beings, for example, if you're a god or goddess of a certain amount of power, that much energy won't fit inside of a human body. And so you almost have to split yourself up into several bodies at once in order to experience being incarnate in a physical form. And some beings are shattered by another being and sent here in thousands of bodies at once. And because you can't kill an immortal spirit, you can't kill a spiritual being. They're immortal. But if there's one that's causing a lot of problems and really attacking a lot of people or whatever it's doing, and you need to deal with it somehow, you can shatter its spirit into thousands of pieces, have it incarnate thousands of bodies at once on an amnesiac planet, and it's going to have to go through the incarnation cycle a whole bunch of times before those pieces can merge and meet up, and then it can move on, incarnate in another body, merge and meet up and all that. And so it's a way to kind of and hopefully at the end of that, they've either learned a lot of lessons and moved on and are a little more healed, or you can deal with them again, but it won't be maybe for another million years you have to deal with them or something, so there's many different situations of how that can come to be, and some beings just choose it. All right, I want to incarnate on Earth. My energy is not going to fit in one body, so I'll take up 10 bodies and I'll incarnate at the same time, and that can happen. We can just choose to do that as well, And I've met a couple of my fragments in this life. Some of them were just random encounters on the internet. Really got to talking to people. We felt, we're like, man, there's such a similar frequency and vibration here. And then there are also other instances of beings that we're really close to and bonded with and in love with in the spiritual realms that we then come here and reunite with. And that's like Eris and I, right? We remember how we know each other. Way before either of us ever came to Earth, we were members of the Alliance, which a lot of humans would call angels, and the winged ones. We're members of the Alliance, and it's a harmony faction, and I've talked a lot about that before, so I won't get into all that. but we had met there. And then after we remembered how we had known each other in the Alliance, we remembered, oh, when we met there, that was a reunion. We knew each other way before that. And there was this, we remember this life where we were on this planet of very kind of hostile beings, and there's a lot of like fighting was constantly happening. It was kind of like a war planet where these, and even our bodies were like these massive like crab like things that were just designed for destruction. And we were bonded. We had children on that planet. And then something happened on that planet, and I won't go into all the details because it's a very long story. Something happened, and our spirits went our separate ways for a long time, incarnate on all kinds of different planets, and then eventually all this, and again, very long story, but we met up again as angelic beings when we were both members of the Alliance, reunited, fell even more deeply in love, and then had been together ever since then. And then we even, like, for example, in the Alliance, there's a particular ceremony some spiritual beings go through where if they're so close to each other, they want to like bond their spirits together. I call it like an angel marriage. It's not a marriage, but it's this beautiful ritual. It's like this giant ritual where all these angels surround you, they sing, and you go through this process of kind of merging your spirits and then re-emerging as one, and it like connects you on a very deep level. And so like we were so deeply bonded that when I met Eris in this life and I saw her, as soon as I saw her face, first I was like, I know her. I've always known her. I've known her for so long. And even though it was the first time I'd ever physically seen her, and then that quickly, within like 2 hours of me thinking that, I was like, oh, she's my partner and we're going to be together forever. Mm-hmm. And I just knew that within like an hour of seeing her face for the first time. And then we were on the phone with each other when we first met. And it was like I met her at this Positive Pineapple event, a healing event that we did. And then I called her like a few days later and we were talking on the phone. It was literally our first phone conversation. And we were both like, I love you. I love you so much. I know I just met you, but I just want to say I love you. And like, and she was talking about how her heart just felt like on fire and she's never experienced anything like this. And I'm the kind of person where I like hardly ever even asked a woman out before in my life. I would always be like, I don't want to offend them by making them think that I'm only into them because I like them or something like that. And so I'd always be very kind of like, I would play it really safe and not really ask anyone out. And like spirit was coming in, my guides were telling me like, yep, you've been looking for her. She's the one, like ask her out. She's going to say yes. Like, this is it. We've set this up. And I'm like, yeah, but how do you know? Are you sure? And they're like, trust us, dude, just do it. And so now it's been, about 2 years. And we've been through so much already in this lifetime together. We've had so many experiences. We've spent more time together communicating and bonding than a lot of couples spend in their first like 5, 6, 7 years of being together. And it's just, and even now, and like it feels like she's always been a part of my life here in this life. It feels like we've always known each other. And like even thinking back to try and remember a time before she was physically in my life, and it's like I have trouble even like imagining that. Yeah, and so yeah, there's all kinds of different things that. And the thing, people think like they come up with these generalizations, right? Like, oh, you're a twin flame, or like, oh, you're a fragment of my spirit, or whatever they say. The spiritual realms and our interactions in the spiritual realms are far, far more complex than any of the interactions we have here in the physical realm.
Right.
It's not more simple because we don't have bodies. We have bodies, we have minds, we have egos, we have emotions, we have all of that. It's way more complex because it's the multiverse. Mm-hmm. So people try to throw things into big categories, but really, so many situations are just entirely unique. So I know I kind of rambled in response to.
No, that was perfect. No, it answers a lot too. And I do think as humans, we just put titles on a lot of things that we don't understand, or we want to call things certain things when in reality, it's just like you said, it's so complex that we don't know. But it's good to cultivate a connection with someone if you feel it. Just as simple as that. Really, like I don't have to bog it down with these terms and different meanings. In reality, it's like, what do I want? I want to be fulfilled here. So the more I can make a lot of things super complex, and it really does it really benefit me?
Right. Yeah, and there are some times, like for example, when me and Eris were remembering all of this, it was enriching. It was like nostalgic, and it just kind of really brought us even closer together. But did we need to remember any of that? Absolutely not. Just being present in the moment and feeling our loving connection in the now. That's all that really matters. But it can be fun. It's not necessary to remember any of your past lives because they're past. They're not here anymore. So you don't need to focus on them. But for example, for healing, maybe someone has some issue and they're just like, I just can't understand why I feel like this. I can't understand what's going on. There's nothing in my life that could have led to this. And maybe we guide them through a past life regression. They remember something that happened, some trauma that happened to them. And then they go, oh, that was it. Okay, now I can process this, let it go, and then move on with my life. And that can be very beneficial for some people as well. But the opposite can happen where people become obsessed with past lives. They become obsessed with the past. They fixate on it to the point where they miss out on the beauty of the present. So it can be kind of a double-edged sword there.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I want to thank you for the other day too. I was just at my old work environment, and I just got I was basically let go of where I was currently working. And you happened to be there right at that time. And like, I just want to say this because it's like a testament to your abilities and stuff. And you sat on the couch with me and you pulled out a stone from your Misha. And yeah, it was like a lot of, I could just feel your love and acceptance. And like, you didn't even ask like what the situation was. Like, it was none of your concern. It was just like, hey man, you're loved and you're valued, and I see that. And that power alone that you brought into that, it really helped me get settled, because my heart was racing, my thoughts were racing along with it. And it was just a very your being is just so cool, calm, and collective, accepting, and loving, and you make people feel seen, man. And I just really appreciate that a lot.
Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for saying that. Because that's what I want to be. I want to be totally loving, non-judgmental, accepting of people, and that's to know that that's how I'm perceived by you it just means a lot. So thank you for saying that. Really.
Yeah.
That does mean a lot to me. Thank you.
I really like this question that Tom asked, and I want to hear your thoughts on it as well.
The one on the bottom?
Yeah.
I keep on hearing the term soul contract. What are your thoughts on that? So once again, this is one of those things that is just a generalized term that people use to just, it could mean different things for different situations and different people. One of the ways that I most typically that I use soul contracts is like, for example, we have a traumatic experience and maybe it makes us feel very unsafe as a child. So we feel very unsafe as a child. So then it may be in the middle of the night one night, we're just thinking to our little child selves, like, someone please save me. And our spirit hears that and it goes out in search for help. And our spirit finds a strong spiritual being, a strong entity. And our spirit forms a contract with, hey, you can stay in my body and do such and such and such with my senses in exchange for keeping me safe and making sure I don't die. And so we may form a contract with an entity in that way, and then that way we have an entity inside of us that we have a contract with, and then that can actually save our lives, or be beneficial at certain times. But a lot of times it snowballs and things get unhealthy and out of hand, and then we may have to undo one of those soul contracts later in life. Another thing is, for example, we make kind of contracts with ourselves, with our own, and with reality, with the different aspects of ourselves and different aspects of reality. And so you can actually travel to the lower world, and Waskarinka, the guardian of the Ukupacha, a guardian of the lower world, has a chamber of soul contracts that we can visit. And I visited there, and I pulled it. He gave me this scroll, and I read it, and it basically said that, because being my full spiritual self, allowing my spiritual abilities to fully shine in this world, got me so hurt and caused me so much suffering in this life, it's not safe. So if things ever feel unsafe, I have XYZ substances to turn to suppress my abilities so that it keeps me safe. And it makes me feel safe. And so, and then I went in, and then there's ways to undo and unwrite that soul contract using kind of the same language. So instead of saying like it's unsafe, I say it is so safe and beautiful for me to shine my gifts and be myself fully, and I will be loved and accepted by all of those around me. And if I have things that ever feel too intense, I just remember, I connect with my soul family. They will reassure me of how safe I am, and I will move forward, and so but there's a whole bunch of different things that could refer to. But those are two instances of types of soul contracts that I personally work with myself and with others. So
It's very cool. I've never heard that exact perception thrown on it, and that makes a lot of sense and resonates with me. It's interesting because I've been going through some turmoil with my kid's mom, and it's just like, man, I believe we kind of have. I believe it's like, cool. I have two kids, so I brought two other spiritual beings into this world, and it's like they have taught me so much, and it's just so cool to be a parent, and they've helped me in tremendous ways. I didn't have much motivation for life until I had children. They really kicked me in my ass and got me focused on my goals and what I love and my passion. But we had a messy breakup for sure. But I looked at her and I said, don't worry. I got a feeling we're going to be doing this time and time again, And I don't know. I've never thought about the soul contracts in the form of like a spiritual entity kind of guiding me or helping me. But like, I've had some psychedelic experiences where I feel like I was maybe, I don't know if it was the underworld or exactly, I can't put like a thing on it, but where I was able to kind of read some of my contracts, and it was with other humans who I've interacted with. And but yeah, it was just so powerful. And like I've heard, like I actually really enjoy Kevin Gates, his music and him talking in his interviews. And he talks a lot similar to how we're speaking now. But he's like, yeah, I fulfilled all my contracts here. He's like, I don't, like, nothing holds me back now. I'm living my highest self. And he's like, I know I'm not going to reincarnate when I come again, And I'm hearing that. I'm like, at the time, I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, I want to know more. I want to know more. But I don't know. I'm not there yet. But as I continue on this journey, like, that's where I want to be. I want, like, that practice. Like, I'm super interested, and I'll probably talk to you after this about like journeying to unidentify some of these things that I have that I want to. I think life is a video game. I can go on all the side quests that I want, or I can focus on the main quest. And I kind of don't want to stray off the main quest as much anymore.
Yeah. And the side quests can be beautiful and very fulfilling. But yeah, I think I can feel what you mean. And yeah, there are that we can form contracts between other physical humans and their spirits. That can absolutely happen as well. And there's just like a lot of different possibilities for that. And yeah, there are some of us who have been told, to have been shown that this is our last incarnation here. It's both beautiful and kind of sad at the same time, I just know I've been, and really quick, while we're still talking about this, I want to pull Eris's up that says, when we rewrite soul contracts, we rewrite our reality. Yeah, absolutely. When we go in, we're rewriting the way that we interact with reality itself when we rewrite those soul contracts. And I'm out after this life, y'all. Hello, bittersweet. Yeah, Eris and I, this is both of our, I guess I can just bring that up then instead of speaking more vaguely. Eris and I, this is our last incarnation on this planet. And I was told that from a young age after my awakening. I think I must have been like 17 or 18 years old, maybe 19. And I was told, they were like, yeah, this is your last incarnation here. And at the time, I didn't even really know what all that meant. I was just explained that. But then it's funny because I was told that, and then years and years after that, I was with someone, and they were a very spiritual person. At the time, they knew a lot more than I did, and they looked into my eyes, and they're like, "Yeah, you got that look in your eyes. This is your last incarnation here." And I was like, "Yeah, I was told that." And they're like, "Yeah, I was too." And like, you have the same look in your eyes that I do. And so like I've had it confirmed to me by outside sources, and But it's not. And then Eris was pulling up. As soon as I had my awakening, I knew it was my last incarnation. It freaked me out at first. It brought me a lot of comfort at first when I first heard that. I was like, okay, good. I don't have to like go through all of this again. But all my life here is beautiful. I love my life. I'm enjoying it so much. I'm spreading my medicine. And I still have so much to do. I'm so excited to share so much with the world and help and really change people's lives who are ready for that change. But I have so much to do. I have so much to do in the multiverse. I have so much family. I have so much family to reunite with. I have so many adventures to go on, so many other worlds to visit, so many other universes to be in, and so many other people's lives to touch and realities to shift. So I have a lot to do after this life, and I'm very excited about it because I've also been shown. In fact, in the Pakokun tradition, you go through an experience called the death rites, where when we die, basically all of our energy centers are uncorked. The hucha, all the heaviness spills out of us, and our spirit leaves our physical body. And if you have a skilled enough shaman who's trained to do this, they can uncork your energy centers and lift your spirit out of your body while keeping a tether attached. And you basically die before you're physically dead. So your spirit leaves your body as though you were dying before you're physically dead. And I've been through that, I think twice now, at least. Yeah, twice I've been through that. And the first time I went through it, I had no idea what to expect. I'd been journeying my whole life since I was a kid, journeying with my angel friends, with my dragons, with all these beings of different races, gods and goddesses. And when they uncorked my energy centers, and first thing that happened is they lift your spirit up out of your body, and I felt their hands underneath me, and I'm like, I don't think anything's happening. And I'm like, but I do feel like I'm higher up off the table. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not higher, like my body's not higher up off the table, my spirit's higher up off the table. And then he just whispered into my spirit's ear. Zane was like, fly free, brother. And then I just took off, and I was in the upper world. I was surrounded by all these angels that I'd met in my journeys and everything, all these spiritual beings. And it was just this big celebration. They're like, you did it. Like, welcome home, brother. They're like, don't worry, like all this stuff. And I know you still have doubts about certain things, but like, this is it. Like, we're waiting for you. It's going to be amazing after you're done here. Like, you have so much family. We love you so fucking much. We support you so much. Like, you're doing great. You're doing amazing. You do have to go back in a little bit, but like, we'll be here for eternity. So don't worry about it. You got us for eternity, man. It's all good. And they were singing, and like, and I was just crying. They were feeding me with so much love and acceptance. And then I had to come back. And it's funny because Zane makes you sign a piece of paper that's like a contract that says, if I end up leaving my body and I don't want to come back, I give Zane permission to yank my soul back into my body. Because apparently some people do that and they're like, oh, I don't want to go back there after this. And then, but you know, that means that their physical body would die. And that wouldn't look good if someone went to a spiritual retreat and they just died on the table receiving energy work. So you have to literally give Zane permission to yank you back in your body if you don't want to come back. So yeah, so it was, but I could see why, because it was really beautiful there. But yeah, I've had so much confirmation of that. So I know what's happening after this life. I know where I'm going, and I know what I'm doing. Not everything. I just the gist of it. I know what's going on, and it just excites me. It's really beautiful. It's going to be beautiful, and I'm going to have an amazing time. But I'm also going to have a beautiful, amazing time here, and I'm also excited about all the things I still have to do in this life. I'm excited. Both are beautiful to me.
Yeah, I've always said that I can't wait to die, but I'm going to live my life as fullest as possible until that point. But I'm so excited. I'm literally in the anticipation is just such a beautiful buildup, you know?
Yeah. And that's such a funny thing for people who don't understand, you know, is that they're like, oh, you must be really depressed and like suicidal or something if you're saying you're excited to die. Like, no, I love my life. I'm so happy. I'm so grateful to be here. I just know that after life, it's going to be fucking beautiful and amazing as well. It's going to be a whole new adventure. Yeah. So yeah, you can have both. You can be excited to die and love your life and have a great time here. But every time I say that out loud or hear someone say that out loud, there's a part of me that just thinks like the old versions of me before I was awakened. Like, what would I think if someone said that? Yeah. And it's just funny.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know someone who has a very crippling disease, and that they fear death so much. And I was actually like talking about how often I romanticize the subject, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting to me how things can manifest, because from my perception, it was that such angst and fear about it is which hindered their life in the here and now, and my such openness and anticipation, like, I think allows the more you're excited for it, the more this seems like a playground, just a stomping ground for a time being, not the end all be all.
Yeah, it's the Causae the game of life. Causae yeah, the play of life. Absolutely, it is. It's a game, and same thing in spirit too. It's also the game of life in spirit. When we don't have a physical body, it's all play. It's all a game. It's a dance of form, and it's really beautiful. But yeah, I know. I've same thing. I know people who are like afraid, so afraid of death, and they contemplate, they think about it a lot, and they get really fearful of it. And yeah, and I used to be like that. I think there were times when I was really young where sometimes if I would think about death, it would really freak me out. And now, yeah, like I said, the same as you. There are times when I romanticized it. I just sit there and I'm like, oh, I can't wait. That's going to be great. But I tend to not think about that so much. Like there are times when it comes into my awareness, but now I try to stay present, because I've got all of eternity to think about and experience all of that, and I've only got a certain finite amount of time here, so I want to really be present and give my full attention to everything that shows up here. And I'm not perfect at that. I get distracted by things. I numb myself out with different things sometimes, but I'm trying all the time to get better at like really just being present to all the beauty that's here on this planet and in my life right now, because there is so much of it.
Yeah, 100%.
And Tom says, well, if we are awakened, we can work on contracts just because we are aware of them. Yeah, awareness is the first and most important step in changing anything. And Eris says, I want to experience death rites so much. Yeah, Eris was at the Hatun Karpai this past year, and we didn't do the death rites for some reason. So yeah, hopefully, maybe, I'm sure you'll get to experience it, Eris. I'm sure, and who knows, maybe the next Hatun Karpai they'll do it. But yeah, it's really beautiful. I'm really curious to see what Eris's experience is like, because Eris is like one of the most powerful, gifted psychics I've ever met, and she still needs to train. She needs a lot of training for her psychic abilities to fine tune them. But her raw psychic potential is like enormous. She's such a powerful psychic.
Yeah, her energy is so contagious, and it's just so bubbly and fun. It's just, yeah, her presence is, it's changed. Just her presence alone is very uplifting, and I hope she realizes that, because it's so beautiful for me to witness and experience.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, being around her, I sent her a message this morning, and I was like, man, like you just glow so bright. You shine so bright. And yeah, I love her so much. She's the thing I love the most in the whole multiverse, for sure. And it's so beautiful to have her. I'm so grateful. Yeah. All right, well, brother, and then Harris is messaging saying, thanks, guys. I love you so much. I love you.
Love you too.
Yeah, and I actually really have to use the restroom, so we should probably wrap up here. And this is perfect. We're at I thought it was 111. It's 112, but that's okay. Still a good number. They're all good numbers. But yeah, anything you want to shout out or anything real quick before we hop off?
I just want to thank you for having me on, and I think you put my description in the link. You guys can check me out on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, and there'll be more to come in the future. I'm still in the process of building my brand, but I just want to thank you, and I look forward to interacting with you, and God bless, brother.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to have you on. I love talking to you, and yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting more physically and hanging out and just playing the Cacao with you. That sounds great. So for everyone, really, I do want to say, one, please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already, but also there is a possibility that within about half an hour to an hour, I'm going to be back on my YouTube channel, live streaming and doing shamanic healing. So if anyone wants to follow that, just turn on the notifications, check on my channel in about 30 minutes or so. And I'll probably be on doing shamanic healings if anyone's in need of healing there. So check that out. I'll be on again very soon, within half an hour to an hour. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. I love you all so much. Anaiki Kuyaiki. Arpichai Sonkolai.